A-D-N.
It's HeadphonesNeil!
What's up, guys, and welcome back to HeadphonesNeil Reviews. I'm your host, as always, HeadphonesNeil, bringing you my set of reviews for this week, which will primarily be focused on Grand Theft Auto and the Season 2 premiere for Andor. But I also wanted to throw in one more review that I had a chance to, or for a set of films I had to get through, mostly because I started watching them, and then I was going to just watch the original trilogy to see how they hold up. And then there's only 2 more films after that, so I was like, okay, well, I will just end up watching those, so I ended up doing that. So that film franchise is Pirates of the Caribbean. The first one I have really good memories of. They basically, in retrospect, took care of all the stuff we were expecting to see in the film, or at least from the ride in the film, so that way they could move on in the rest of the franchise to other stories and topics and interactions and things like that. So for me, the first Pirates of the Caribbean is good just because you have a lot of those scenes like the prisoners whistling at the dog, the scene at Tortuga, which is kind of like the same scenes from the ride around the middle of it, the pile of jewelry and jewels and all of that towards the end as far as what started the curse to begin with, and all of that stuff. So for me, so that's definitely still holds up. And then the rest of the films from there basically round out more of the stories. So Will or the repercussions of Will and Elizabeth letting Jack go, same thing along the lines of the Commodore guy, the backstory for Jack later in the franchise, the Fountain of Youth, and a little bit more into Jack's past, tying together stuff with Barbossa and what he's been up to, and why he's not necessarily feared and all that, but just his state of mind for a lot of things. They did introduce Blackbeard. I thought his story arc was a little bit... it was more on the okay side. It wasn't good, it wasn't bad. Mostly because, what's his name, who played him, the actor, did a good job of it. I think it's Ian McShane or whatever. Like, he did a good job portraying him, but they didn't really give him enough... Like, the story... It was building the story around him a little bit, but it kind of felt shoehorned in as far as that part goes. So I kind of did okay without that part, but having it there, I kind of wish they had done more. So we'll see if they ever, if they do make another, or like a 6th film in the franchise, what they do with it and all of that. But as far as the films overall, I enjoy them quite a bit. I don't think anything negative about any of them. I think they tried to do for a little bit to continue the joke of the dog and the whistling scene, keeping him as part of the crew, having him randomly come back, which it feels like they kind of strayed away from that, but that would have been a funny thing to have done. I mean, along the lines of even the interactions that Jack has with the monkey, it would have been funny. I guess they could have consolidated those two and had it dealt with it with the dog. But nothing here or there. They didn't do a bad job with that, in my opinion. So for me, I definitely recommend giving the films a watch. It's a good, guilty pleasure, I guess, because I guess most people like the first, but not necessarily the rest of the films. For me, I like all of them in their own ways. So definitely that. And all of it is, of course, dependent on the whole thing, that it depends entirely on the acting of Johnny Depp. He really portrays that character well. He sells it throughout, and overall it is one of those things where that's what makes the films that much better, is his portrayal of that character. So with that being said, I have continued my playthrough, or my gameplay for Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, the definitive edition. So now we're at the end of Los Santos. We realize that the guy who's been kind of CJ's mentor double-crossed him, and he's been working with the police, so he's had to escape the Los Santos. So we go to Angel's Angel Pine and the Whetstone area to deal with some of that stuff. We have CJ's sister's boyfriend's, I guess, sister or cousin or whoever. They do some bank robberies, so we have a temporary romance thing going on there. Kind of a stopover for him to hide, for CJ to hide out, which leads us into the whole San Fierro thing and the partnership with Woozy. So, but yeah, overall that stuff, the Angel Pine Whetstone stuff is kind of that stopover before we go into the San Fierro area as a good transition. So that's kind of where we're at there. Nothing major to talk about really. A lot of the stuff is just they start introducing things like driving a motorcycle, long distance driving, and things like that. So and more stuff on freeways and traffic and all of that versus more city driving and short distance driving that we saw in Los Santos. So with that's really about it. But yeah, like I said, the gameplays or not like I said, but the gameplays are going up regularly. So hope you're enjoying the enhanced graphics. I kind of am, but there's certain areas that after a certain amount of gameplay where it starts to stutter and get stuck. So I don't know if it's a device issue or a game issue. So I do sometimes have to reduce the graphics quality on that. So that's kind of a bummer, but it's not something that necessarily takes too much away from the game. It kind of just makes it from DVD quality down to like 480p. So not good or bad. So instead of full graphics, I have to turn it down to about 50% or put the slider about halfway into the games or halfway into the middle. So there's that. But I can't wait to get into the San Fierro stuff just to see how all of that looks and feels as far as with the enhanced graphics. So to round out this particular episode, we do have the 3-episode season premiere for Andor. So this is season 2, and they're doing something different with the season where they're grouping the season into groups of 3 episodes. So it's a time jump 1 year later after the end of season 1 when we start season 2, and then each episode grouping, I guess, is going to be another time jump, and that's going to lead us directly into the events of Rogue One. And they start off the season like that too. They mentioned 4 years before the Battle of Yavin. So that's kind of the time frame of where we're at. Well, we have Andor or Cassian now into the full swing of being a rebel spy. Mon Mothma is dealing with the continued repercussions of making it harder and harder with her connections on Chandrila and getting her funds and money to support the rebel effort. Luthen's still around doing what he needs to do, so we'll kind of see what role he plays in this season beyond what happened in the last season. But overall, the season starts strong with the stealing of the TIE fighter is mostly dealing around with that. The second episode deals mostly with the rebels on, I forget the planet name, but it looks like it's one of the moons in the Yavin system, because when we end that episode, we see a couple of the distinctive pyramids and then the red-orange planet in space hovering above it. So that led me to say I think this is the Yavin system and where the rebel base is going to be. So it almost feels like they're trying to find a spot for the rebel base, or they're trying to find if it's going to be a good spot or something. So we'll see how they deal with that in the later episodes, if they deal with it, and then how Saw Gerrera faces into it. We have a couple of scenes with director Krennic and the ISB and all that stuff. We have that one guy from the and his mom dealing with Daedra and acting like they're dating and they have a good life and all that. So that was a particularly nice scene there. So it's kind of a trilogy of episodes to deal with all the different things, all the different factions from last season. So the overarching thing, of course, is going to be with Cassian and stealing the TIE fighter, and then the rest of it is kind of the backup for Mon Mothma and Luthen, and then the Empire side of things with the ISB. So overall, for me, I did enjoy all of it. The first episode more than the rest, but I do see that they're doing a lot of setup for what's going to happen in the rest of the season, to the point where I'm wondering if they're even going to have a special cameo, or how they're going to deal with tying it into Rogue One and the rest of the Star Wars universe. So are we going to have cameo by Darth Vader or the Emperor, Tarkin. I mean, ideally we would want Tarkin in there. Maybe even Princess Leia, Bail Organa, and the usual people from ideally all the characters from Rogue One. So even if we don't see the Emperor, have Darth Vader, Tarkin, and Princess Leia. But we may even want to have the Emperor make an appearance, or round out the season with the Emperor talking to Vader as one of those things, or maybe even with Vader and Tarkin on Coruscant, to say that he wants them to take over the Death Star project. All the stuff that Krennic's been up to is no good. They need to keep a tight lid on it, and all of that stuff. And even if they put it in the very last episode as the closing stinger, or something in the last trilogy of episodes, something along those lines. So I'm curious to see where they go with it and all of that. So but yeah, needless to say, it is a trilogy of episodes each week until it's done. So I forget if it's 9, or I forget exactly how many episodes in the season, but it's going to be 3 episodes a week until it's done. So it's almost like a feature-length movie level, because they're like 45 to 50-minute episodes. So you get a good couple of hours of content each week. So we'll see how it goes, but overall, definitely worth watching. So I do recommend, before you start Season 2, definitely watch Andor Season 1 and Rogue One, so you get the prequel and the sequel, and then you have the Season 2 to fill in the blanks to see how good or bad they do to exactly fill in those blanks. So that's actually all there is for this particular episode. So if you have any questions, comments, feedback, your own thoughts on Andor, then you can definitely comment on the post, or the podcast post on social media. It's all linked on the website at HeadphonesNeil.reviews. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel, which has the gameplay videos, the audio version of the podcast, and all of that at youtube.com/PatelN01. I'll have an update for that hopefully next week, as far as something new that's starting for that. I'm just waiting for a couple of things to happen on the background, so look out for that update once I have it. I'm hoping for next week, but as soon as I have it, I'll share that. But yeah, that's all there is for that. So thanks for tuning into this particular episode. Next week's episode will be much like this week, where we'll have Grand Theft Auto San Andreas update and the Andor update. And then whatever else I have a chance to watch or anything like that. But for the moment, it's mostly just those are the 2 main focuses for now, and take it from there based on the time I have. But that's all there is for this particular episode. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time.